Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 13th, 2026. So we start this episode back at Bill's law firm, and it's Haley, Bill, Madison, and Naomi. They're there, and they're trying to get Bill to allow Madison to assess, what's going on with him. And Bill is kind of being resistant because he is stating that everything is fine, and they're arguing with him back and forth. And so finally, they get him to agree to let Madison assess him. And Haley and Naomi, they go out in the hall. And so Madison and Bill stay in the office and she starts her assessment. While she's doing the assessment, Naomi and Haley are in the hall, and Haley's like, "Oh my goodness, I knew I should have got him checked out." And she was like, "Wait a minute, how long have these symptoms been going on?" And she was like, "Oh, he's had a tremor for a while, but he said it was nothing." And she was like, "Haley, why would you not pay attention to that? Because the tremors are how it all started last time." And then she was like, "I know, that's why I'm feeling bad. Don't beat me up about it now." Haley knows how to play her role. She does know how to play her role very well. And so she's like, um, you know, please don't, pile on me, blah, blah, blah. So when they go back into the room, Madison says, Bill seems to be doing better. But it's best that he goes to Garland because it's best that he gets checked out, and it's even more better. Is even more important that he is there in the case that things start going south again, because being at the hospital is the best place for him. And so he agrees to go to Garland. So they all go to Garland. And when they get there, Naomi calls her mother and she tells her mother, that Bill's in the hospital again. And Danny says she, hope everything is okay, but she's not coming because Haley is his wife and, you know, whatever. And Naomi is a bit taken aback by the fact that Danny isn't coming, but she's like, "You sure you're not coming?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm not coming." So, Naomi calls Chelsea, and Chelsea goes, and they all sit and wait the results to come back. It doesn't look like Bill has had a stroke, but Madison can't pinpoint the reason for his symptoms, but she knows that there is a reason for the symptoms, so she wants to look at his blood work and do more tests. Meanwhile, we have Anita and Nicole. Nicole is over visiting her mom, and Anita is drinking some fruit lemonade that Rowena made, and Nicole jokes, Rowena better be careful before Kat gets spoiled and she'll never leave. And then she said, "Oh, you don't know." So then, Gran tells her that Kat has bought a condo, and Nicole, being the mother, she's like, "Why all of a sudden?" And so, she's questioning what is going on with Kat. So she's like, "Don't worry about it. I'm gonna go talk to my daughter." So she leaves to go track down Kat, and then Vernon comes in and he's talking to Anita because someone that they used to know wants him to do like some mentoring of candidates. And so she, is talking to him about that, and then, he's like decides to go do that. So he leaves to go, call and accept the position. Meanwhile, Kat and Chelsea, before Chelsea gets the call about Bill, Kat and Chelsea are the um at Chelsea's place, and they are talking about work, and Chelsea asks Kat if she would kind of like do a PSA on their Chelsea Cat page about, organ donation, her and Eva. And so Kat is like, look, why do y'all keep pushing Eva on me? This is her stance. Like, I've made peace with Eva. I've made peace, but I don't want her in my life, and I don't want to be like the face of donation. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. And so she tells Chelsea that, and Chelsea presses a little, and she's like, "Look, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm not telling you don't put that on our page. Do whatever you want. I don't care. Even if you want to call Eva and get her to do it, I don't care. Just leave me out of it," which I think is fair of Kat. Like, she does not have to be cool with this girl. Like, stop trying to press it on her. She doesn't have to be. And if she wants to keep her at arm's length, then let her do what she want to do. That's her prerogative, and she's not wrong for doing so. Just like she wasn't wrong if she decided not to give her her liver. She wasn't wrong if she had decided not to do that. She's not wrong for not wanting to play kumbaya and be associated with Eva. She doesn't have to do that. And so then Chelsea's like, well, if I call Eva, are you going to talk about me behind my back? And she's like, no, I'll talk about you to your face. Like, girl, stop playing games with me. I said what I said. I meant what I said. And I'm not like completely shutting it down. I just don't want to have anything to do with it. Respect that. So then that's when, Chelsea gets the call about her dad, and she leaves, and she says, oh, but I had a meeting with the Fenmore buyers. And she's like, don't worry about it. I'll take the meeting. So then Nicole comes over, and she sees, Kat working, and she's like, you're supposed to be taking it easy. And she's like, I know Chelsea has been on my back because she's afraid that if she doesn't, if she's not on my back, then she's afraid that you are going to get her for not, insisting that I take it easy. And so then Nicole starts talking to her about buying the condo. She congratulates her, and she's like asking her, like, why are you, doing this? And she tells her, she bought the condo for her and Tomas to live in it, and he wants to pay rent. And Nicole, she was being a good mother today. I like the conversation that Nicole had with her, and that doesn't happen often, but she was like, let the man pay rent. Don't not accept the rent. Let him, yeah, because he needs to pay his way. And she's like, and also, like, you don't have to. She didn't like impose her thoughts or feelings on Kat, but she did like give Kat a space to open up and talk. And I think that was good. And we don't often get to see that with Nicole. So that was good to see. Then we have Danny and Andre, because Danny comes back. Because last time we saw Danny and Andre, it was still this same day, but she left to go talk to Ashley because she was mad with Andre because he wanted to talk mastectomy with her. And she wasn't really feeling that line of conversation. So she left. And so she came back, and now I guess she's calmer now. And he is on the computer, and he closes the computer. And when he closes the computer, she sees legs. And she was like, oh, you looking at one of our shoots? And he was like, no. And then she's like, what were you looking at? So she takes the computer, as any wife would do, because, nigga, what you looking at? Oops, I'm sorry. What you looking at? And so she opens the computer, and he's looking at a photo shoot for people who had mastectomies, and some had reconstructions and others didn't. And they get to talking and arguing about that again, and she's like, she don't want to talk about it. And then she says she wants him to make her feel. And then when they're on the counter, he has her on the counter, is when she gets the call from Chelsea about Bill. But Danny is trying to cover up everything with sex, cancer, and what she did with Bill. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 14th, 2026. So we start this episode with Danny and Andre, and they have picked up where they left off. They were having a conversation yesterday, and so now they have left the conversation stage of the conversation, and they went to the naked and sweaty part of the conversation. And so he remembers that he was supposed to meet Ted for lunch. And so when he realizes, he's like, I don't want to leave the bed, but I need to go meet him, but I don't want to leave you. And she's like, look, you don't got to babysit me. And, he's trying to be supportive, but Danny is still being sketchy because Danny is sketchy. I still love her, sketchy and all, but she's being sketchy. I don't care about Andre anymore because he showed his true colors when he did what he did when they were trying to pressure Kat into um, giving the portion of her liver. So I'm not really feeling Andre these days, and I don't care that he gets hurt. But I digress. Anyway, so he leaves and he goes to the club to see to see Ted. And before he gets there with Ted is talking with Tomas, who um tells Bill about Kat buying the condo for them to live in, and how he felt like, she, humiliated him one way only to turn around and humiliate him another way. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know how it is about the Dupree women, and I think it's good that my daughter was raised that way. But yeah, I've been on the other side of it, so I do know how you feel. Ted, you be really getting on my nerves. You really get on my nerves with that whole the Dupree women talk that you be peddling sometimes. Like, stop. But anyway, so then Andre arrives, and he and Andre and Ted, they're talking, they're eating or whatever, and they start talking about, the relationship between Ted and Shanice, and Ted thinks he's in love with Shanice. I missed the part where they were actually exclusive, because I know for a while they were saying they weren't exclusive. So are they exclusive now? I'm just asking because I feel like the class wants to know. Or maybe the class knows and you can enlighten me. Leave it down in the comments. But he's saying that he wants to um he's afraid to tell her because he's only told two people that he loved them, that being Nicole and that being Leslie. And Leslie went crazy because he changed his mind about loving her. This is crazy talk. This is crazy. I just want everybody to know that this is crazy talk. We're witnessing crazy talk. But anyway, so then at the hospital, Madison, Chelsea, and Naomi and Bill. Well, it's Bill, Naomi, and Chelsea, and they're talking. And Chelsea is on WebMD trying to figure out what Bill's symptoms could be. And in walks Madison, and she's like, "You more than anybody, because if you know doctors, stay off the internet. They're gonna tell you to stay off the internet, especially if you are their loved one. They're gonna tell you, like, don't be looking up stuff on the internet, because that, like she said, you don't know the context of the symptoms, so you don't know, like, what you're just upsetting yourself basically." And so she's like, "Yeah, but we know, we just are trying to figure out what's going on, because we don't know what's going on." And so um Madison says that she wants to keep Bill overnight, but Bill doesn't want to stay overnight. And then Haley's like, oh, well, he don't want to stay. And then Naomi drags her out in the hospital and like, girl, if you don't get him to stay. And she's like, okay, I'll do what I can. And so I guess they're gonna let Bill stay overnight. And so she left to go get him some things. And then he sends Naomi to his office to, make sure that everything is running smoothly. And Chelsea calls her mom and tells her everything. Danny is still saying that she's not going. And meanwhile, Danny is at home talking to Nicole, lying to Nicole, telling Nicole that, the tornado changed me and I realized that Bill has a wife. Not a very good one, but he has a wife and that's her concern. I'm not running down to the hospital. Danny runs down to the hospital after she has that conversation with Nicole, and he's like, did you come for me or for the girls? And she said, what do you think? And they're sitting there talking, and this is ridiculous. Like, if you want to be with Bill that treated you like crap, I mean, go ahead and be with Bill that treated you like crap. Like, I just don't. And this has nothing to do with me wanting to spare Andre, because I'm over wanting to spare Andre. This is me speaking personally. Don't lie. Just, if you don't want me, then don't talk to me, said the poet Fantasia Barrino. like like that's how I feel about it. Like, you don't have to sit here and lie to me and tell me what you think I want to hear. I'd rather hear the truth because I can go ahead and move. I'm not gonna cling to you. That's just me. There are people, aka Jordan Ashford on General Hospital, who will hold on to you whether you want to be held on to or not. But that ain't me. That ain't Ashton. Ashton, I could care less. Like, well, I'm not gonna say I could care less because yeah, I have feelings and things, and I've had a broken heart before, and it didn't feel good, and he was cheating, right? But I would have preferred, like you had told me, you ain't want to be with me, you wanted to be with her, and I would have quite happily went on about my business, like, because I'm not going to. You ain't stopping nothing over here. You ain't got to lie, Craig. But anyway, so she is talking to him, and then Haley comes over and sees that Danny is there. And she asks Bill after Danny leaves, did you um make me go home to get your toothbrush so that you can summon Danny? And he was like, you volunteered and I didn't know Danny was coming. And so anyway, Haley, Shanice, and Ashley, they're talking about their men and talking about cheating and all of that at the nurses station. And because Shanice's ex got in contact with her after the 4th of July. And so they're talking, and she was like, I told him that my man ain't gonna ever cheat on a woman like this. And she's all going off, okay, Ted ain't all that. But anyway, she's going all off about Ted. And Nicole walks up, and she's like, oh my God, Nicole, this is getting old because, like, Nicole ain't fragile. Like, but she said, oh my God, Nicole, I wasn't trying to throw shade at you. And she was like, no. So then they all start talking about cheating. And then Madison comes up and she was like, oh, my fiance don't cheat and blah, blah, blah. And we got it made in the shade and all of this stuff she's saying. And Danny walks up and she's like, well, I'm glad to hear that about for you and my daughter. And so then Danny is like running out because Nicole's like, I thought you weren't coming. And she was like, well, I changed my mind. I had to come tell Bill he couldn't die on me. And she's like, you mean the girls? She said, yeah, the girls. And she's running on the elevator trying to get away from the third degree from Nicole. But you are seen, Danny. Your slip is showing. But yeah, that was Beyond the Gates for today. It was pretty chill. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and we'll be back at it tomorrow, I guess. See you then. Oh, and then Tomas. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 15th, 2026. So we start this episode at the Dupree home. Um, Vernon is bringing in Sharon and Tracy. And Anita's surprised. They've come to see her, and because she has finished her chemo and has had her mastectomy, they're like, "Oh, come go on, finish the tour out with us." And she declines and she says, "But once I finish, my radiation and everything, and I'm on officially on the mend, then we can definitely talk to Devon about getting in the studio and recording, with Barbara's voice because they want to do that as a tribute to Barbara." And she said, "We can do that." And so, Vernon leaves them and they start talking about how Sharon has a man. And she's like, "I don't got no man." And she was like, "Oh, she has a man, and he's good. And I can tell by the way he looks at her, that, it could be long lasting and enduring." And, Anita she is supportive of this because she has just went through everything that she went through with the cancer, and so she knows how big, having someone in your life that love and support you the way that Vernon loves and supports her, how important that is. And when you have that, you want that for everyone else around you. So she wants that for Sharon and Tracy, who she considers her sisters. So she wants that for her sisters, and so she's all rooting for that. And then Vernon comes and he tells them that he's scheduled a meeting for them with Devon for after her radiation. And he's looked at their tour schedule and everything. And so he has coordinated everything so that it lines up. So he scheduled that meeting for them. And, Anita is I see it on her face. She's a little like nervous, but at the same time, she loves that Vernon is able to take this kind of initiative and make her dreams come true. Because that's one thing about Vernon. He's always going to make things happen for his wife. So she's like, very grateful for him doing such a thing. Then we have Jacob and Naomi. They are at Orphegenes and they're talking more about, because now things are trying to settle down with Bill. So they're talking more about, her options as far as the BRCA gene goes. And she tells him that she has a doctor's appointment today with Monica to go and discuss her options. And she asked him if he had time to go. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm working a night shift. Yeah, I can go with you." So they go to Garland and they go and meet with Monica. And I love Monica as a doctor. Her antics as Shanice's aunt and her trying to guide this relationship between Ted and Shanice, that's a bit much, and she leaves me lacking in that area. But when it comes to her as a doctor, I love Monica the doctor. I liked how she handled Anita when she was going through her health crisis with the infection that she got during the chemo. I liked how she handled that situation. And I actually liked how she handled the situation with Naomi today. She was very honest and forthcoming with Naomi, which I think Naomi needed because Naomi was saying about the double mastectomy, but there are other cancers that come along that you need to be screened for when it comes to the BRCA gene. And I knew that, not from personal experience, but I knew that the uterine and ovarian, I knew about the other things that I'm a I'm a medical drama junkie, so I know a lot of medical information. That sounds crazy saying that because like it's TV, but a lot of this medical stuff does be real. Like not everything, but a lot of it is real. And so I know a lot of I know a lot of information. So I knew, she was just talking about the breast, but the breast weren't, that's just part of it. Like, you do have to think about your uterine health and your ovarian health. And so they talked about it. And she's like, if I remove my ovaries, that's going to put me at early menopause. And she's like, yeah, that is true. And he was like, can you, explain the menopause for me? Because we often hear about hot flashes. And she's like, yeah, that's just part of it. There are, she goes to tell them, what to look for. And she also tells them, look, you don't have to make the decision right now. Naomi is taking the steps that she needs. She's taking the tests, which indicate that, she's not at risk or in danger at this time. So, you have time to talk and seek counsel and make an informed decision. And then Jacob, in the midst of this conversation, Jacob says, we've decided not to expand our family. We're okay with that. He says it, but then he makes a face. And then also when they're at the elevator and they're hugging, and she's like, you were honest, you were open, it's good. And they were hugging, and he has this look on his face. I don't know that Jacob is necessarily on board or that he has agreed to the not extending the family. So I don't know if hard times are they might be near for Naomi and Jacob again, because it seems like he is having second thoughts about what he agreed to. And that doesn't make him a bad person. It happens. Meanwhile, Haley and Randy are at Uptown and they're gloating. Well, Haley is gloating about Bill being in the hospital and he's about to get the bucket now. And Randy's like, yeah, I don't think that's happening. I think that you're prematurely celebrating. And she's like, no, you don't know, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes out that Madison is his doctor. And he was like, you mean to tell me that his daughter's fiance is his doctor? Someone with the vested interest in getting him well and finding out what is happening, and you're not concerned? Haley is stupid. She just doesn't get it. Meanwhile, Madison and Chelsea, they're coming off the elevator as Bill is trying to get on the elevator. He's leaving the hospital AMA. And so him and Chelsea kind of get into it because she's like, where are you going? And he's like, look, I'm doing what I'm going to do. And then, her and Madison try to talk him out of it. But as Madison says, she can't make him stay. So at one point, she ends up calling Haley and then telling Haley that he has left the hospital. And so she goes to the office and she does her Haley thing. She's not really interested in him going back to the hospital because she just had the conversation with Randy, and she knows that, with him being in the hospital with Madison, it runs the risk of her um getting exposed. So she is not going to really encourage him to go back to the hospital. Then we have Vanessa and Joey. She's still finding things of Doug in her house, in her garage. And then uh, she's still finding things in her garage. And so he distracts her so that he can go through the box. And then he finds a letter that Doug left and placed in the box. And so she leaves to go speak with Deanna, who invites her, Joey, and Donnell to dinner because she has some kind of plan up her sleeve. And he calls Randy over to the house because he wants Randy to find out, like, if Doug has some kind of safe deposit box or anything else where another letter could be, because the letter incriminates Joey. But yeah, Joey is trying to cover his tracks right now. But yeah, that was Beyond the Gates for today. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and we'll be back tomorrow to see what it has in store for us. All right, bye. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 16th, 2026. So, we start this episode at Danny's house, and she's there with Pamela. And Pamela and her are looking for another model or whatever. And while they're looking for the model, Danny confesses to Pamela that she slept with Bill. And I'm actually kind of tired of this conversation because Danny, go to therapy. If go to therapy, how about that? Because like I can't right now. I can't with you. She's talking about how she thought everything. She thought that the people she loved had died, and she thought she was gonna die. I don't recall Danny ever being in danger for real during the tornado. I don't recall any of her children being in danger. Andre was injured, but it was minor apparently. Like, and you didn't know that they were in danger for real. You knew you were on the elevator, and the elevator, that there was a loss of power and the elevator was stuck, but you had no idea what was going on outside of the elevator. So to say that, oh, I thought that everyone had died, is kind of crazy to me. I'm just saying, okay, Danny, be dramatic much. So she says that, and she's like, I think that the universe is punishing me by making Naomi have the BRCA gene. Naomi had the BRCA gene before you slept with Bill. Like, you look for any excuse but to say that you a bird. Just say, Danny, that you're a bird. And I love you. Don't get me wrong. I love Danny. She stands 10 toes down for Cat, and I love that. But Danny, just say you a bird. Don't come up here with all these excuses about why you did what you did. You did what you did because you wanted to do it. And Pamela, I like what Pamela has to say, that, if, she's surprised that it didn't happen before now. And, look, if you want to, don't pick up the book because the cover looks good. You know what he did to you. Keep that in the forefront of your mind and go on with your life. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all it is. It's a decision, because you're a person, you have complete control over your actions and abilities and desires. Forget it and move on, or go be back with Bill and do this toxic cycle over and over again. But I'm tired of hearing about it. Then we have Bill and Haley. Haley comes and asks Bill about dinner, and he's like, you got to stop checking up on me. So she's like, well, then I'm going to go to the spa then. She don't really care no way, because she don't want to be there with Bill. She don't want him to be back in the hospital, because then she runs the risk of Madison finding out that she's poisoning him. So she's like, oh, well, I'm going to go to the spa. So then she goes to Orphe Jeans, and then she goes to the club, and then she runs into Naomi, Kat, and Chelsea, and they're like, why is she going around having happy hour when she should be with Bill? And then they have an exchange with her, and then an attendant for the country club comes and tells her that her esthetician is ready. So they're like, oh wow, so you really having drinks and a facial while Bill should be in the hospital, but he's not. So like, it's funny because all three of them are suspicious of her and her actions and the way she's behaving right now. Girl, your slip is showing. You better be very careful, Haley. Then we have Deanna. She is at Uptown, and she's waiting for her mother and Joey to come. And she is practicing telling her mother that Joey had something to do with her father's death But then she looks at the picture of Doug and she tells Doug, I know that I can't do it now, but oh, just you wait. So then they come and they have dinner. It's very tense and very thick in there, but she gets through it. And when she goes outside after she gets through it, she's talking to the picture of Doug again, and then she throws the dessert and stomps it that that Joey bought for her. And she's like, "Dad, I did it. Deanna needs help." Like, I want Joey to be exposed like the next person. Don't get me wrong, because I hate the fact that he is okay with causing a rift between her and her mother, and I know it suits his needs, but I hold mother daughter relationships as a daughter with a mother. I hold mother daughter relationships very near and dear to my heart. So it really bugs me to see what he is willing to do to Vanessa's relationship with her daughter. But then I don't feel bad for Vanessa because she lets him do it. So there's that. But then we have Smitty. He's sitting and he's reading an article about them trying to figure out why Martin abruptly canceled the press conference back then, when we remember when the racist was bothering him. And he's thinking back to that time when he and Martin had separated, and in comes Andre, and Andre is talking to him. Sorry. Andre is talking to him and, saying, they're talking about marriage and fighting and all of this. So it's I want to see if, when this information about Danny and Bill comes out, if Andre is going to put in the fight. I, I really don't care one way or another because I'm like done with Andre. But I want to see, like, if he's going to stick it out and put in the work and the effort to make it work with Danny, even though she done popped that thing for Bill. And then we have Martin. He's kind of thinking along the same lines, but he's there with Kat and Chelsea. They're there to meet with Naomi, and Naomi comes to tell them that she has the BRCA gene and that she's thinking about getting a double mastectomy. And Chelsea is pissed off because she kept that information. Martin tells her that he will support whatever decision she makes, and then he leaves because he has to go meet with Andre, and then he starts talking about relationship and marriage with Andre too. And then he asks Andre if he will be his official campaign photographer. So then back at the club, Naomi and Kat and Chelsea, continue to have the conversation about Naomi keeping the information. And Naomi's like, well, when you came out in your own time, I would figure that you would respect me enough to let me tell this information in my own time. And she's like, okay, fine. I hate arguing with you because it's pointless or whatever. And so then Kat tells Naomi that she bought a new condo and that she's going to have a temporary roommate. She called that boy her roommate. Catherine, what are you doing? And then Tomas has a conversation with Bill, and he has not gone to Puerto Rico yet. I need him to go to Puerto Rico and never come back. Like, cause I'm like, I'm tired. I'm tired at this point. But he's having a conversation with Bill because he felt like Bill brought in Naomi when he should be the, person holding it down when, something goes awry with Bill. But Naomi is his daughter. You're no one to him. And I don't know why you would think you will hold the firm down when his daughter, who is an attorney, is very capable of doing so. That's crazy. But I digress. And then, Bill also cautioned him again. I hope that you're not using my niece to get up in your career. But that was Beyond the Gates. We'll round this week out tomorrow. Hey guys, let's talk Beyond the Gates for today, July 17th, 2026. So we start this episode at Eva's apartment. Ted is there making her breakfast, or he brought her back breakfast. I don't know. He's there to check on her because Isaiah has gone back to work because I guess he hasn't been at work since she's been released from the hospital for the transplant. And so um he's there to, basically do his shift with his daughter. And while he's talking to her, Shanice calls and he's on the phone with Shanice and somebody knocks on the door. And then Eva tries to get the door, but he's like, I'll get it. And he opens the door and it's Leslie. And here comes Leslie being Leslie because although she has turned over a new leaf, everything's still the same. So she's flirting with Ted, and Ted gets off the phone with Shanice, and Shanice is feeling a kind of way about Leslie being there and being possibly using her daughter's, recovery to get back in Ted's good graces or something like that. Which that is something that Leslie would do because she has no shame. However, if you think that I just don't have, I have low tolerance. And so I wouldn't, even if Ted was always firm with her or whatever the case may be, I'm not putting up with that. I'm not dealing with it. I can go be by myself or find somebody else that don't have all of this drama and everything. So I would bow out. But that's just me. Shanice is not me. So um Ted is there and he was like, well, since Leslie is here, I can go ahead and leave. And Leslie's like, no, we can stay, have some family time. And he's like, yeah, absolutely not. Eva says, well, I'm going to bed because y'all can both leave. I'm going to bed. So she goes back into her bedroom, and Leslie is again in Ted's face trying to flirt with him. And he gets mad and he finds the bass in his voice. Now you find the bass in your voice. You couldn't find the bass in your voice when you and Nicole were still married but separated, and she was antagonizing Nicole every chance she got. You couldn't find the bass in your voice then, but now because you're with Shanice, you can find the bass in your voice. Okay, Ted. All right. So he gets into it with her, and Eva rushes out, and she's like, what is going on here? And he was like, your mom was flirting with me again. And well, she's like, he's just bent out of shape because I was a little flirty. And then so he gets mad and he apologizes for raising his voice and he leaves. And so then she's left with her mother, and she's asking her mother what she's doing. And she's upset because she says, you're risking my relationship with my dad with your antics. And she basically asks her mother to leave. So, Leslie is upset and sad and she leaves or whatever. And later, which I find is total crap, Kat comes over to meet Eva to thank her for the other day last week when she was it last week or was last week the off week? I don't know. When Tomas came over and she told him off, she's thanking her for that. Okay. But then she reiterates to her that, they're still not going to be sisters. Meanwhile, Kat, Chelsea, and Danny are having dinner. Well, excuse me, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. They're having a meal at the country club, and you know, Danny is asking, what's going on with Chelsea Cat, and Cat is telling her about the latest bag that Chelsea designed, but Chelsea looks forlorn and distracted. And so Danny asked her what's going on, and she was like, when the last time you talked about Naomi? And then Danny's like, oh, she told you. And she's like, oh, you knew too? And you kept it from me? And she's like, your sister just told me. And so Chelsea gets a little bent out of shape because she feels like no one is taking the health situation seriously. And then Danny was like, yo, chill out. First of all, I was laughing at the picture that granddad sent of mother kicking it with Sharon and Tracy the other day. But everybody handles things differently, and you're not gonna tell me that she's just correcting her in the motherly way. And so once she finishes, you know, she says she's just worried. Chelsea says she's just worried, and she apologizes. And so then once she apologizes, they start talking about how Haley was getting spa treatments after Bill had um, checked himself out of the hospital. So, sorry. And so when the girls leave, they go their separate ways. Danny is still at the club. Meanwhile, Bill and Haley are at the hospital, are at the um, office, and Bill is again upset that Haley keeps trying to babysit him. So he tells her that he's busy, he has to work. He tells her to go on to the club, and then he'll meet her for dessert or something. So she goes to the club and she runs into Danny, and her and Danny have back and forth because Danny's like, why are you leaving your husband um high and dry when he starts showing some age or whatever. They having back and forth, which I don't see why Danny is engaging with her. And then she basically is like, you can set the bill all you want because I'm done doing it. Basically leaving breadcrumbs for Haley to know that she slept with Bill. Like, I'm so over Danny. Like, love you, Danny. Love you. Love you. I do. However, this whole bill situation, seek help. That's all I have for you. Seek help. So she is upset about that, and she goes and she calls Bill, and she's like, Danny said something funny to me. So then Bill, instead of answering Haley's question about what Danny said, he gets off the phone and then he beelines it to Danny's house. Danny's walking in the door and she's talking to Andre on the phone. She gets off the phone with Andre and opens the door for Bill. And she's like, what are you doing here? Andre could have been home, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, you gonna make it so that Andre finds out, because what if Haley gets suspicious and she tells Andre? And then he's making innuendo like it could happen again. And this back and forth roller coaster, revolving door situation is over. I'm over it. Like, can we wrap this up? What Judge Judy say? But anyway, then at the hospital, Shanice and um, Madison are talking, and then they're talking about, how Shanice is crazy. I mean, how Leslie is crazy. And then Madison, is like, yeah, I can see how, this would be hard. But if Nicole thinks that Ted has learned his lesson, then everything is good. So then Chelsea comes and she and Madison leaves because she was getting off anyway. She leaves to take Chelsea's mind off of the health concerns in her family because it's really stressing her out. And then Ted comes and Shanice is also getting off, and he takes her away, and they tell each other, well, I don't know if she said it back. I don't remember, but he tells Shanice that he's falling in love with her. And yeah, that was Beyond the Gates for this week. Oh, and then Leslie and Haley get into it So now they're enemies, like they're actual enemies now. So that will be good to see them go at it. But yeah, that was Beyond the Gates. Have a great weekend.